Mike.
Brandon.
We back. It's a Dynasty Obsession, no off season. What's up, everybody? I am Big Boned at FFB. He is Greinberg. We are here with you. It's Dynasty Obsession, no off season, week 2 or episode 2. We're coming at you. We got an update on the Dynasty calendar where we're sitting, and we got some coaching updates and everything. Big news out of Las Vegas. Pour yourself a frosty beverage. I'm drinking tequila today with some Waterloo pineapple seltzer, not a sponsor. And also, hey, Mike, do you have Jarritos in Canada?
No, we have Doritos, though.
Jarritos, Jarritos. It's a Mexican soda. It is everywhere. They have all kinds of flavors like guava and mango and pineapple and all that stuff. It's very popular in the Mexican restaurants. But I have found this one. It's called Peña Fiel. And they have a Mandarino orange soda and this limonada limeade that are like two of the greatest sodas I've ever had. And they go great with tequila. So cheers to Caliph Kingsbury. Raiders are back, baby.
We're back. And you know what? I'm really happy that my Chiefs are going to be playing on your home field in the Super Bowl. Represent.
Good luck to your Chiefs in the upcoming Super Bowl against the 49ers. I am in Northern California, but I'm not a 49ers fan. So I'm rooting for the Meteor in this one. This is a replay of, 2017 when I think that was the last Super Bowl I didn't watch. I went to work. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go work. It was pizza. Super Bowl Sunday is the busiest day in pizza. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to follow the game. I'm just going to go get tips. And but I'm going to watch this one. We're going to party.
We're going to party.
It'll be good.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to party as well. And hopefully we can take another back-to-back championship here. Haven't had one yet, but let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go, Taylor.
Yeah, she's going to be the show there.
She is the talisman you guys have been waiting. No, she's not. You guys have been to the Super Bowl before. Even before she got there, she has nothing to do with the success of the Chiefs. Everybody needs to chill out. There's nothing wrong with having Taylor Swift there. There's nothing wrong with the 4 or 5 times per game that the cameras show her in the box. Just everybody get over yourselves.
You know what? It's a great distraction from what's actually happening on the field and how the refs are aiding our case. So, you're just a little angry about the situation. It's okay.
I'm not angry about anything. I did see a tweet today that was pretty funny. It was watching Chiefs tape getting ready for the game, and I noticed, or no, I'm sorry. Let me back up a bit. Somebody asked Nick Bosa what he has found from watching the tape of the Chiefs getting ready for the game, and he said they hold a lot. So yeah, yet somehow they don't get called for it. Conspiracy.
Exactly. All right, man. So what's on the agenda tonight? What do we have going on for the viewers and listeners about?
How about this? How about you go ahead and give us all kinds of coaches updates, because we have a lot of them.
It was a whirlwind of a week, and it's really hard to keep up with all of them. But we got a new head coach in Carolina. The Panthers hired Dave Canales. Frank Wright and his staff preferred CJ Stroud as the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft. And now Frank Wright is no longer the head coach. It was not the start the Panthers imagined when they went 2-15 this season.
You meant Bust Young.
Yeah, Bust Young. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bust Young. A complete disaster for them, especially for Bust Young. When you consider the draft capital it took to acquire him, the Panthers' new GM, Dan Morgan, has gotten to work immediately and reunited Canales with, himself and their Seattle days. Some say that he is the quarterback whisperer by getting the best of his quarterbacks. He was the mastermind behind Geno Smith and most recently Baker Mayfield's resurgence. If there is anyone that can save a career, I would say it is Dave Canales for Bryce Young, but we shall see. Where does it go from here? The quarterback success has followed Dave Canales wherever he's gone, but this might be his toughest test to date. Canales was, the mastermind behind the Geno Smith and Baker turnaround, but they had high-powered weapons on their offense like, Metcalf and Lockett for Geno and Evans and Godwin for Baker. So Bust Young gets a talented coach, but they're going to need to add aggressively in the offseason, adding weapons for Bust Young in free agency. So currently I have him, Bust Young, as my quarterback 21. I think this is actually a good thing for him, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping to see some free agencies happening here and some high-end talent at wide receiver come in. And then right now I also have Chuba Hubbard ranked as my RB25. We'll see. There's probably going to be some talent brought in there, but I think Chuba's has shown enough that he probably will get the starting role unless a veteran comes in and at least split the work moving forward. So what are your thoughts in that situation there in Carolina, Biggs?
Well, first of all, I was hoping Canales would go to Washington so he could work with Sam Howell. Secondly, regarding Bryce Young, I believe it was in one of our last podcasts that I said, don't give up on him. With the right regime change in Carolina, things could look better for him. He doesn't make my top 24 as a quarter in my top 24 quarterbacks. Chuba Hubbard sits right at 24 in my top 36 Dynasty running backs. Now, the other news out of Carolina was that Ejiro Evero is likely going to be staying on as the defensive coordinator. And if you recall from all of our weekend warm-ups, me hammering the fact that Carolina had a really, really good defense. So if that stays around and Canales can work some magic, I'm really loving my Jonathan Mingo trades because I acquired him in the last month on a couple of different teams. And he's super cheap. I don't have high hopes for him whatsoever. It was more of a dart throw. Maybe Mingo can make something out of himself. Maybe the right coordinator can come in and turn him into a Deebo Samuel because that's like his profile. And with the Canales hiring, who knows? Maybe that can kind of come to fruition. So I'm a little bit more optimistic on the Panthers quarterback or Panthers offense. I still can't move Bryce Young into my top 24. I do not see anybody in my top 24 that I would be willing to move out for Bryce Young. So, that's there you have it.
Yeah, the only reason why he's there is because he was the number 1 overall pick, and I'm not just giving up after him after 1 year without being surrounded by much. So we'll see what happens. And he's there for me, but there's still a lot of variables right now in that quarterback situation. So we'll see what happens in the draft. So, and
it does take some time. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Aiden O'Connell is 15 years too late. 15 years ago, he would have been a great NFL quarterback, but now not so much. So go ahead and rewind, think of that thought, and then fast forward back to this spot. But yeah, if we look at Justin Fields, so Justin Fields was tasked with running early on in his first year or two. By DVOA, he was worse than Zach Wilson. But this last season, he improved. He had a better year. So there is hope for Bryce Young. Don't give up on him. But I still wouldn't have him as a buy low at this point, unless you already have 3 playable quarterbacks. Maybe take a flyer on him. But all is not lost, basically.
Agreed. All right, so Ben Johnson, huge news, staying in Detroit. Many thought that the Commanders or Seahawks would be the front runners for that position for him to be head coach, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen now. He's staying in Detroit. Unfinished business, potentially better jobs opening up next year. So right now, I'm still like, I love this idea here. I think that Dan Campbell needs a coordinator like Ben Johnson. I was worried about him leaving and seeing what would happen there, but looking good now for the future of those really young and important fantasy assets. So right now, I got Goff as my QB 18, Gibbs as my RB1, Amon-Ra as my wide receiver 3, Jameson Williams as my wide receiver 41, and Laporta making it into my top 100 as my tight end 2. So I have 5 of the Detroit Lions making it in the top of my dynasty rankings of the 100 here.
Yeah, I have Goff at 12. I have Gibbs at 5. I have Amon-Ra at 5. And I have Laporta at tight end 1.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, yeah, the band's staying together. And why wouldn't they? I mean, like, put yourself in in the shoes of Ben Johnson. Like, why would you want to go somewhere and and try and build? Why would you want to go try and fix the Falcons or go and fix the Panthers when you just made it to the NFC Championship game and put 21 points on the board, 24 or 20, whatever it was, got out of the gate hot and and really put it on the 49ers. Had a couple of mistakes. Gibbs hangs onto the ball, Reynolds catches the ball, and that's a totally different ball game. And the silver and blue are in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So run it back. I mean, there's no reason for him to leave.
Agreed. So now we got another movement here in Tennessee. Well, we know that that happened because, well, Brian Callahan is now the head coach. They're making a clear effort to overhaul their offense by hiring Brian Callahan, the former Bengals OC for the past 5 years. He's now expected to be the primary play caller in Tennessee. Callahan is a great coach, especially for quarterbacks. Great news for Will Levis. Callahan deserves credit for helping Jake Browning lead the Bengals to a respectable position and looked good down the final stretch of 2023. Fantasy managers should be confident that Will Levis will have a better opportunity to be successful in 2024 with the hire of Callahan. Bringing in Callahan looks like it will be a changing of the guard, converting the super run heavy into a more pass heavy offense. I love this move for Tajay Spears, who now becomes a top 12 dynasty running back for me, and the anticipation of the Derrick Henry departure. So looking good there for Spears, in my opinion, and should be a ton of cap space moving forward to bring in some help at wide receiver. This could be a good move for Will Levis, but some think this move could be very good for Treylon Burks and potentially for a year 3 breakout. So, Biggs, what do you think? Do you think Treylon Burks is back in action in year 3?
I've been saying it. He's my number 1 target for year 3 breakout, mirroring kind of what Nico Collins did this year. I can't say the I can't say that name. I have PTSD. But yeah, Spears, my running back 9. I love Burks as my top target for buy low with his 3rd year breakout, and we're looking at DeAndre Hopkins as my wide receiver 47 because he's getting on in age. And I don't think it means much for Chig because Cincinnati wasn't really like a tight end making offense, so I don't see his value changing much at all. But Levis looks like he can He can be an average starter, still not in my top 24, but yeah, I'm all over Tyjae Spears.
Well, I mean, if he starts, I got him in my top 24. He's my top 22 right now, and Spears as well. Like I was surprised how high you were on Spears, and I'm actually a little bit higher on him too. I got him as my RB7 heading into this year, so I got really high hopes for Spears. I've been touting him since he uh, got into the league, and I've been known to tout him. So I'm really putting my eggs in his basket, and hopefully he turns out.
I think it's interesting that you have both Levis and Bryce Young in your top 24, and I don't. I'm gonna let me pick two names that I think might not be in your top 24 that I have that
Okay.
are the reason. Jaden Daniels and Sam Howell.
I have Jaden Daniels as my QB 16.
Oh wow, that's even higher than me.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Watson.
Sean Watson is my QB 24.
Mine too. Sam Howell's not in your top
No,
24.
he's not. No,
And then Derek Carr not in your top 24?
no.
Okay, that's it. Sam Howell and Derek Carr. So I like both those guys better than Levis and Young. So
Mm-hmm. I just like the
there's
age. I like the age. Howell. I'm worried about his situation as well. I mean, at least Bryce Young has got the draft capital, and they're not going to move off of him that quickly, in my opinion. So, I mean, they have to. I mean, look what they gave up to get him. So I think there's only room to improve. And Will Levis, I think that with the coaching change there, I mean, the Titans need. They have needs elsewhere, and obviously they need a quarterback. But I think Will Levis has shown enough that they're going to give him another shot. So, um,
sure.
and
And
yeah,
and I
yeah,
just like Howell better just because he's shown the production that those two guys
yeah,
haven't. So
yeah,
in my eyes, for me to rank those two guys higher, I would
yeah.
be dreaming on their breakouts rather than having a known quantity in what Sam Howell can do.
All right, so moving on to the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. I mean, it's been news. It was the headline. I'm not going to spend too much time, but back to the Chargers for Harbaugh. Harbaugh, who led the Wolverines to an undefeated national championship, is now back in the NFL. Not sure what lured him back after 9-year absence. Might have been the $16 million year contract. I don't know, but Harbaugh is known for his run-heavy offenses, even though he was a former quarterback himself. Not great news if you ask me when you're referring to a young quarterback like Justin Herbert. I'm expecting the Chargers to part ways with Austin Eckler as well this offseason and bring in a rookie in the draft. I've gone on record saying that Blake Corum is destined to be a Charger, but we shall see. The wide receiver room is up in the air with the potential departure of Keenan Allen and the clouded futures of often injured and aging Mike Williams and rookie bust Quinton Johnson. So right now, I have Herbert. He's plummeted out of my top 12 quarterback rankings right now. Just with the way he finished 2023 as well. He was injured, but his season alone, he was in the games he played, he was not even a top 8 quarterback. I think he finished as a top 10. So I'm a little bit out on Herbert, and I'm a little bit less bullish on him moving forward. So he's my quarterback 13, and I'm still waiting to see what's going to happen here.
You're higher on him than me. I'm at 18.
Yeah.
And hey, Mike.
What's up? What's up?
Pop quiz, hot shot.
What's up?
Guess which running back I don't have in my top 100 all of overall dynasty rankings.
Tony Pollard.
Austin Eckler.
Ah.
Also Tony Pollard, but Austin Eckler.
Yeah, me as well.
He's my running back 32, right behind Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, right in front of Ramondre Stevenson, which I'm looking at that and I don't know why I have Ramondre down that far. I think I would actually pop him up above Javonte, between him and Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, I don't have Eckler in my top 100 overall.
Interesting. Neither do I. Neither do I.
How far the mighty have fallen.
Exactly. That's the age clip, though, for running backs, folks. All right, so we're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons here, and Raheem Morris as the head coach and Zach Robinson as the OC. So Raheem Morris,
Oh,
yeah, I know, eh? Atlanta Falcons' new head coach after emerging as the top choice ahead of Bill Belichick, who many thought would get the job after they brought him in for a second interview. Morris, who helped led the Rams defense to their Super Bowl in 2021 as their defensive coordinator, is now taking over for the Falcons. The Falcons are loaded with offensive talent. 3 top 10 picks in the last 3 years in Bijan, London, and Pitts. Despite former head coach Arthur Smith, Bijan maintained an impressive 14.5 fantasy points per game. London is due for some regression, especially in the touchdown area where he only had 2. He's going to get hopefully a more accurate quarterback heading into 2024, but we're not sure who that's going to be yet. Having recorded 69 catches on 109 targets, that's not very good. Additionally, Kyle Pitts is still only 23 and has the potential to turn his sluggish start of his career around. And, with this new direction the Falcons are headed in, you might say that these guys have a brighter future, even though it's not super bright considering the coaching changes here, but it's way better than Arthur Smith. So Bijan is my RB2. I got Drake London as my wide receiver 24, and I got Kyle Pitts as my tight end 12 because I am going to wait to see it before I believe it.
Drake London is my wide receiver 37. Bijan Robinson is my RB1. And Kyle Pitts is my RB3. We have seen it. We didn't see it with Arthur Smith. But Robinson is one of the guys that was on my short list for taking over the OC in Vegas. And it's funny how the narratives change because, it was basically assumed, taken for granted that Belichick was going to land somewhere and Ben Johnson was going to take over somewhere and everything. Neither of those things happened. Cliff Kingsbury was a late kind of people talked about him a little bit. And I think Bill is just tired.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think he just you know what? It was
I'm good.
high highs and low lows, and I just got through the low lows, and I just want to step away for a little bit, and I don't think he wants to get into a situation where he has to really work at this point. So I don't blame him whatsoever. But let's watch very carefully the Atlanta quarterback situation, see if they draft somebody or if they decide that they're going to stick with Ritter. I think Ritter does have some upside. I know that he disappointed me a lot this last season in 2023. I put a lot of stock into him using his legs, and it didn't really work out well for me. But again, and even if you contrast him with we were talking about before, Will Levis and Bryce Young, I feel like he has a little bit more of a track record there than those two guys. So if the Falcons, and it cracks me up every time you say Falcons because it makes me think of Star Wars. But if the Falcons decide that they're going to roll with Ritter, I'm back in, baby. I'm all on the Ritter train because he's going to be such a deep value, and I will advocate for him all day long.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a couple offers, low ballers, and see if I can get them on my dynasty rosters. If you're high on them, because you know your stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can do that. All right. So the Eagles made a change at OC, and they're bringing in Kellen Moore. After their collapse this 2023 in their offense, especially down the stretch, the Eagles hire former LA Charger and Dallas Cowboy offensive coordinator, and he will try to get the Eagles back on track as their new OC. Kellen Moore spent 4 years in Dallas before becoming the offensive coordinator for the Chargers in 2023. While the Chargers offense looked great to start 2023, however, injuries to the key players, notably Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, stalled the Chargers down the stretch. stretch. While the Eagles have plenty of talent at the skill positions, their offense also fell flat at the end of the season. Moore's offense have traditionally been more pass-friendly, ranking in the top 10 pass attempts 4 out of the last 5 seasons, so which should bode well for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Each are extremely talented and should continue to be heavily involved for the Eagles and fantasy managers. Neither will return major value at their current cost, though, because I just don't see them increasing in value at this stage. They're very highly priced, so I don't see them increasing in value. I see them staying the same as safe assets in dynasty football leagues. So I have Jalen Hurts as my QB5. I have DeAndre Swift as my RB18, AJ Brown as my wide receiver 7, and Devonta Smith as my wide receiver 12.
Yeah, losing Steichen really hurt.
Oh, huge.
And Kellen Moore, if we look at it, I tried to tell Chargers fans before the season started, like, don't get all hyped because you've got an overrated quarterback, you've got an aging running back, and Kellen Moore isn't all that. Well, look what happened. Obviously, the defense was a bigger problem for the Chargers than the offense, but the offense still wasn't great. And Moore leaves Dallas, and Dak has a career type year. So, yeah, hopefully he can fix what ails the Eagles. But when I'm looking at it, I have Jalen Hurts as my quarterback 1, DeAndre Swift, RB22, A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 7, and just made a trade for Devontae Smith, and he is my wide receiver 22.
All right, man. Cool. All right, let's move on. And we got one more that just crept in here, and that was today. And that was Dan Quinn, who gets hired as the head coach of the Washington Commanders after he led the Cowboys and their defense to a humiliating loss to the Packers, in which the Quinn-led defense gave up 48 points in a home playoff game. Well, must have looked better than Eric Bieniemy, obviously. Would have been nice to see him get the gig, but we know how the NFL is. Yeesh. What does Quinn bring to the Washington Commanders? Known for his defensive mind, he should help the 29th ranked defense in the league get better immediately. I have an even harder time putting proper ranks on these Commander players now with so much in the air. Quinn, who isn't known for his offensive mind, needs to find a good OC quickly. A void he failed to properly fill as the time as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. So currently I have Brian Robinson as my RB24, Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver 31. Like you mentioned, Sam Howell isn't in my top 24 at the moment, but we'll see what happens moving forward now with that team, if he's going to be in that running or not.
I think the league has moved to a place where offensive-minded head coaches or raw head coaches like Dan Campbell are the way to go. I think the NFL has evolved out of the defense. Former defensive coordinator, head coach comes in and fixes a team, and defense wins championships. I think those days are gone. So where I see the Commanders fitting into the NFC East picture, not making the playoffs, none of that changes. One of the things about me ranking Sam Howell as my QB22 was I did that with the caveat that they were going to bring in somebody that was going to look at him and go, okay, this is somebody that we can work with. So all of that remains to be seen, and he very easily could slip out of my top 24. Running back, I have Brian Robinson. Outside of my top 36. That can't be right. Oh, there he is, 23. Brian Robinson is my RB 23. Terry McLaurin is my wide receiver 36. So we're a few spots away. on all of the guys, very similar where we're sticking people. But I think unfortunately it's a very parallel move for the Commanders. Ron Rivera was just like he was an out of touch old head, and I don't think Dan Quinn is any different. I
Yeah.
don't think they did much to move the needle in Washington, and it's just going to be more of the same. I feel bad for Commanders fans because I mean, if you look at the promise of Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, how good Logan Thomas was when he gets on the field, the promise of Sam Howell, Antonio Gibson, if he's used right, can be a fantastic back, and Brian Robinson Jr. is just an absolute dog. You know, there's a lot of reasons. There were a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and then you look at that defense and you had Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and then all of a sudden just everything kind of went to crap. And then instead of getting a young, fresh mind who's going to revolutionize the game, like all of their staff when they had like Shanahan and McVay and McDaniel and I mean, you look at LaFleur, all these guys were in Washington. All these guys that are like playoff coaches around the NFL, and now they go from Ron Rivera to Dan Quinn, and it's like, did they even try when they brought Bieniemy over? I mean, how much of the Chiefs was Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes, and how much of it was actually Bieniemy? Well, we'll know once the Commanders have a competent offensive line. So yeah, I feel bad for them.
Yeah. Well, we got a couple of minutes left here. They're Biggs. Why don't you get us through the calendar and maybe a trade or two here, and then we'll let the viewers hang their hats.
Hey, Mike, that sounds like a plan. Yeah. All right, so as we have been discussing, we are in the Dynasty offseason, and there's a specific calendar that we're trying to follow. In the previous weeks, we're right butt up against the Senior Bowl right now. We've got the Pro Bowl this weekend. This episode will drop just before the Super Bowl, and there's not a lot of action going on. So what we talked about before was trying to acquire as many draft picks because the draft pick cost was still a little bit deflated. Right now it's neutral. So unless somebody is sending you trades or they're willing to, like they don't really value draft picks, maybe it's somebody that has traded a lot of their draft capital away and they're looking at some late rounders. The idea, again, is to capitalize in after the combine when people start hungering for those draft picks. So if you can get them cheap and flip them later, that's what we're doing. We're flipping draft picks. So a couple of the trades that I've made in recent weeks, if I can find which freaking page am I? Like, I don't need. Where am I? Oh, okay, it's right there. I traded David Njoku for an early third rounder. Now, this is a league that has a tight end cap, like you can only roster so many, and I have a couple that I'd rather keep. And also, Njoku was the one that would bring me back the best draft pick. Early third doesn't sound great, but I know that this class is so deep at wide receiver and running backs are faded so hard that an early third rounder, I'm going to be able to get somebody who's gonna do better than me just dropping Njoku because I'm drafting Brock Bowers in this league. I made another trade, the Saquon Watson and Madison for the 202, which again, it's a top 14 pick, and it's going to bring me back a lot of capital, especially if I want to move it at the combine. What I'm getting rid of is an aging out running back. I do think Saquon's going to have a nice year next year. He's going to have a bounce back year, but I think it'll be his last. So get out too early rather than too late. Christian Watson I've never been high on him. I've never really owned him except in redraft, and that was like just because he was there. Romeo Doubs this in the playoffs absolutely passed him. Jaden Reed passed him throughout the season. Dontavian Wicks made a case. Bo Melton is good. Luke Musgrave is good. Tucker Kraft is good. It's a very, very crowded offense, and I don't see Watson being much more than like a Gabe Davis, who I don't want to roster. And then Alexander Madison, who lost his job to Ty Chandler, and I don't see much for. So I got out from under those three guys for the 202. And then I traded Kelsey, and I got Derek Carr, Zach Moss, and a fourth, and Deontay Johnson. And I thought that was a pretty good trade. That was more of a – it was less of like trying to go grab a draft pick because, I mean, it's a fourth rounder. But I do plan on using that fourth round pick to package somebody and move up in March and maybe turn that into like a third rounder or something like that. So most of my dynasty leagues, I'm looking pretty good running up to the combine. I've got a lot of draft capital in a lot of leagues, and I'm pretty super excited about what I'm going to be able to do. I mean, I gotta say, I saw a chart today that was talking about maybe I can even find it. So they were tracking over the last so many years the value of the running back draft class, and here it is. Okay. So this is basically correlating the average score of the top 5 recruits using 247's composite rating for running back classes. And over the last few years, 2017 was the top rated draft class. 2018 was the second. 2016 was the third. And 2023 was the fourth. 2015, 2020, and 2024. So with that 2024 class, it's not as bad as people are making it out to be. 2022, you had Breece Hall come out, and it's a better class than that. Better than the 2021 class. So in recent years, 2024 isn't quite as bad as everybody is trying to make it out to be. It's marginally worse than 2020, and so there are some guys. There are some absolute guys in this draft class that I'm excited about. And the more I see people saying, "Oh, the class is bad," the more running backs I'm going to be grabbing, because especially in an era where there are more backfield committees than anything, it's not going to hurt to overload on running backs and have 2 or 3 on the same team. An Algier Bijan situation where Algier had some top 10 finishes this year, even though we thought that Bijan's draft capital was going to sink him. The running back depth in fantasy, like the tiers are, there's a huge drop off from the top 5 or 6, but just like with what the tight end class used to be, you go from RB6 to RB40, and there's like it's a very shallow pool. There's not a lot of points separating those tiers. So give me Marshawn, give me Braylon, give me all of them. I'll take all your running backs that you're trying to fade, and I'll throw a couple wide receivers in there as well. So that's the dynasty calendar for this era, or this part of the season. We'll see you after the Super Bowl. We'll start talking pre-combine after all these Senior Bowl evaluations come out and everybody's super high on Brendan Rice now. And I like Johnny Wilson. That dude is he's a tight end.
He's him.
Stop it. Find me on Twitter and see what I think about calling somebody him. I saw 3 guys yesterday called him, and I'm like, come on. you look at the Senior Bowl last year. You had Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Puka Nakua, and some Tank Dell. Right, those 4 guys. They all had fantastic rookie years. Which one of those are you going to call him after the Senior Bowl? Like, come on! There's no one after the senior. Lad McConkey had a great day. Brendan Rice, Brendan Rice was interviewed by Ray GQ, and Ray GQ asked him who he models his game after, and he said, "I'm like DK but faster." I was like, when your dad is Jerry Rice, the greatest football player that ever walked the face of the planet, you might have a big head too. But he said he's a DK. So yeah, Brendan Rice I have him in Devi on 2 teams, and he's been a target of mine. So I don't like the helium because I want him to stay a value. I think he's really, really good. He's a great route runner and separator, and he's going to do well in the NFL. But that just cracked me up. He's got an ego. He's he thinks highly of himself.
Sweet, man. All right, folks, that is the end of the Dynasty Obsession.
No off season.
Yeah, buddy. And right, we'll be back in a couple of weeks for the next episode.
I didn't mean to do that to you.
I know.
Yeah. So check us out. Follow me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. Follow Mike at FFCanuck99 on Twitter. You can read our stuff on a bunch of different platforms. Follow Player Profiler. Follow Dynasty Pros. Read all the content. Dynasty Pros is coming out with all kinds of great stuff, and a lot of like Devi debates or Dynasty debates and rankings and updates and articles and all that stuff. So keep everything going on Dynasty Pros and check out all that content. There's a lot of good writers there, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Thank you for joining us. I hope you win. One of my favorite parts is whenever I miss hitting the button. That's always why I watch